Hello, my name is Brittany Spence, and I'm on the organizing committee for the 2016 British Fascia Symposium. And today I'm with John Sharkey from NTC and John Sharkey Events, and he is hosting the pre-conference day to the British Fascia Symposium this year, entitled Putting the Science into Practice. And John, you have got, including yourself, 6 of the world's most renowned experts in this field. So it's going to be a really, really exciting day. You're going to be putting together a talk that with a biotensegrity focus. Tell us a bit about what you have planned for that day and what people can expect.
Well, first of all, Brittany, it's great to join you. And you're absolutely correct. I've thought about this since we first put the event together. I've thought about it so many times. How lucky was I to be able to get, Robert Schleip, Jean-Claude Guimberteau, Dr. Nial Galloway, Scarr, Joanne Avison. It's just an amazing lineup. And regardless of whether you know about biotensegrity or that you appreciate what biotensegrity is, these are international stars at the moment. And I think that anybody involved in bodywork and movement therapy generally should be very, very interested in the work of these people. Mm-hmm. So from the biotensegrity viewpoint, obviously fascia is a key word in the bodywork therapy profession at the moment, and in movement therapy as well. But the biotensegrity aspect really takes the fascia science and makes sense of it in a practical way. And I suppose that's why myself and my good friend and colleague Joanne Avison will be there on the day to help to translate the science into hands-on practical applications.
And that is the whole message, with the whole ethos behind the British Fascia Symposium itself. Joanne Avison as well as Dr. Schleip both spoke at the 2014 British Fascia Symposium, and anybody that saw their talks or who has ever seen their talks knows that they have a fantastic way of really putting it into a language that you can understand, especially as a therapist, not as a scientist or a researcher. And so, that's fantastic. That's really good.
Well, I actually met Joanne Avison for the first time at the British Fascia Symposium in 2014, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. I know. Can you believe it's been that long?
And really, Joanne really impressed me because I thought Joanne had a lovely grasp of the vocabulary and the language needed to be able to put this information across in a way that therapists would truly be able to appreciate and understand it. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I don't mean that Joanne dumbed it down, and I certainly never do that either. What I'm really saying is that I think Joanne has the ability to choose her vocabulary very carefully so that she's able to make that transition to take the, and I'd like to think that I don't do a bad job of it either, because that's really what I've spent my career doing, which is to take the science and to translate it into something meaningful for the bodywork and movement therapists.
Well, this is it. You yourself were at the 2014 British Fascia Symposium, and I didn't get to hear your workshop, but I do know that it had fantastic feedback, so I think that it must be true that you definitely can translate it into understandable terms. So,
well, that was a great event, and I really enjoyed it, and I just got tons of emails following that presentation. So it's great to be associated with the second outing.
Yes, no, I know that we are all really excited to have you associated with the pre-conference day. So that's great stuff. So tell us a bit more about what you have been getting up to with the speakers themselves. I know that you have had, you said that you met Joanne in the 2014 British Fascia Symposium, but you guys have had a couple of other collaborations together. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, if we talk, for instance, about Joanne and let's say Dr. Robert Schleip,
yes.
uh, we are members of an interest group called the Big Interest Group or the Big Group, and BIG stands for Biotensegrity Interest Group, and
Excellent.
this basically is a group that came together through Dr. Steve Levin. Um, and basically, what we do is we meet every year. There's no fee involved, which is quite amazing. We usually go to a, a monastery outside Brussels, and our thoughts, by the way, are with the people in Brussels today. But anyway, we go to a monastery outside Brussels. This gives us a beautiful venue for quiet contemplation, and we share thoughts and ideas and the current science and see if we can make sense of it in terms of this model of biotensegrity. And so Robert was actually at the very first meeting. And then, as I say, just shortly after the British Fascia Symposium, we again met outside Brussels in Ghent. And that's when I really formally met Joanne. And then, you know, we got talking, because it really is odd when I look back at my professional career of 30 years, Joanne is able to fill in some of the missing pieces in terms of my career, and I was able to fill in some of the missing pieces in Joanne's career, because we've had an overlap in terms of some of the people that we've worked with
That's amazing.
over the years. Yeah. So from that viewpoint, of course, people may know as well that I've been working with Dr. Leon Chaito since the mid 80s. Dr. Chaito and myself have developed a higher diploma, which is a degree equivalent course, and also a master's degree course in the particular therapy that, you know, I'm responsible for, which is European neuromuscular therapy.
Okay.
And you know, so I think through Dr. Chaito in particular, Dr. Chaito is the editor of the Journal of Bodywork and Movement Therapies, or what people refer to as JBMT, which is now really one of the most successful journals for Elsevier. And that really has, because I'm on the editorial board, that has really given me some great privileges. It has put me in contact with really all the leading scientists and all the leading experts in the area. So and that's a really privileged position to be in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're glad that you're in there, because I mean, all of you are making such a huge impact in the industry all around. I mean, you know, amazing stuff has come from everyone that you've mentioned so far. So it's really fascinating. I want to hear a little bit more about your backstory itself, as you say, you know, how you got started, how you got into this world.
Wow, Brittany. This, you see, again, people who know me will know that I am very, very much steeped in scientific principles. I love science, and I, you know, love research, but I also realize that science can sometimes fail us in the bodywork therapy world, because there are just too many variables to take into consideration when somebody goes to investigate, you know, why such and such happens, etc., etc. Um, my background basically is that as a young boy, I had a brother who's 3 years older than me, and so myself and my brother used to go to a nearby beach close to where we lived, and we had a game, and the game basically was to run over the sand dunes and get from one end of the beach to the other and back, and the game was just to complete the run. Now, I was later to discover that this was to become known as jogging or running. I didn't realize that that's what it was called at the time. Sorry about the noise.
That's all right.
But I was reading about certain individuals, and one of those individuals was a guy called Bernard McFadden. Now, if I mention Bernard McFadden's name, I'm sure that the vast majority of people will not know who he is. And they may even think that I'm pronouncing his name wrong. But there is no D at the end of his name. He started out as Bernard McFadden, but he dropped the D. He thought that Bernard just sounded more robust and more, more kind of had more strength to it as such. And Bernard McFadden is basically the father of health-related fitness on this side of the world, basically. And he was the person then who was responsible for running competitions, physique competitions, which the Weider or Weider brothers would have entered. And then the Weider brothers went on to run their own competitions, which people like Lou Ferrigno and Arnold Schwarzenegger would have entered. And this guy had an amazing publishing empire. And so he was into promoting health. So for instance, you mentioned NTC, the National Training Centre. We offer a whole range of courses, and there is a range of courses that are in the area of exercise and health studies. And the reason that the word health is in the title is because of Bernard McFadden. In other words, I was really interested in promoting health-related fitness. I wasn't necessarily interested in promoting, marathon running or, some of these more really intense, severe events, but physical activity that led to health benefits. And so he basically combined bodywork, hands-on bodywork therapy with physical activity. And believe it or not, I was at a car boot sale in 1980, and I came across his encyclopedia. And I bought it. I still have that. I have it in the NTC library, actually. And an individual by the name of Stanley Leaf traveled to the USA to study with Bernard McFadden. Stanley Leaf, as it turns out, happens to be the uncle of Leon Chaito.
Oh, wow. So these are these overlaps again that you're talking about. It's amazing, isn't it?
Unbelievable connections. And so I was reading about Stanley Leaf and about Bernard McFadden, and Stanley Leaf then returned to the United Kingdom, and he set up a practice. He was an osteopath and a naturopathic practitioner, and he set up a practice in Chappneys in the UK, which is a beautiful resort. It's still there, still going, and in fact people can visit Chappneys' website, and they have a whole section devoted to Stanley Leaf. And so Stanley Leaf and his cousin Boris Chaito are really the protagonists of the term neuromuscular techniques. And so I met Dr. Chaito. I'd been reading about Dr. Chaito, met Dr. Chaito in the mid-80s, and there wasn't a therapy of neuromuscular therapy, other than in the States, by the way. There was in the States. It had been set up by a guy called Paul St. John. But neuromuscular therapy in America basically had different influences. There was some overlap. There was definitely some overlap, but very different influences to the European neuromuscular therapy. And as I say, here we are today in 2016, and we now have a master's degree in neuromuscular therapy.
Fantastic.
So I think we've achieved quite a lot.
Yes, so I mean that's that's impressive. Is really impressive actually to get to that point. You have books yourself out as well, related to this work as well.
Sure. Just trying to see if I can keep up with Dr. Chaito, who has just under perhaps maybe about 90 titles, somewhere in that region. Leon is just.
I was going to say prolific. You'll have to get your boots on and get running to catch up, get back at that jog on the beach.
Well, I have a different writing style to Dr. Chaito, but yeah, I have two books, one which is currently out and one which will be out in about a month's time. The book that's currently out is The Concise Book of Muscles, which is a joint venture with myself and Chris Jarmay, and unfortunately Chris passed away. So, but this book also has a section written by myself and Dr. Stephen Levin,
Fantastic.
who is the father of biotensegrity. And so I'm really pleased about the book because the book is really based on classical anatomy. And biotensegrity is what I refer to as it's the new anatomy for the 21st century. And sometimes I have students say to me, well, why do you teach us the old anatomy if the old anatomy, is not accurate? And I say to them, I've struggled with this and I've thought about this a lot. You really need to understand the history and the past. You need to understand where we've come from in terms of our current anatomy. And then you can appreciate where we are, and then we can move forward so that we can move away from this idea of origins and insertions and one muscle being responsible for producing one movement. But I'm hearing lots of other presenters and speakers using this language. So I think that we've had an impact.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
Across the globe. I think we have.
I mean, it's definitely there's definitely movement going in that direction. And, I mean, like you say, with the pre-conference day, I think a lot of those faces and titles that are going to be speaking there are going, they're ones who are as well fundamentally responsible for those changes as well. So it's really...
There's no doubt, the work, Brittany, the work of Dr. Jean-Claude Guimberteau was really transforming, because I'm a clinical anatomist. Now, from the very earliest days, I realized that there were two aspects to bodywork therapy and to the movement specialist that were basically foundation stones. And they were physiology, exercise physiology, and anatomy. And so anatomy definitely is a foundation stone upon which we are built. And if we don't truly understand anatomy, then I'm not sure that we can have the type of therapeutic intervention, successful therapeutic intervention that we're looking to have. Sure. Now, as I say, I'm involved in dissection. So individuals donate, gift their bodies after death, of course, and we then get to dissect the body and investigate the skin and all the structures deep to the skin. But these specimens are treated with fixatives. Up to this point in time, formalin and formaldehyde would be used, and in fact, over the next number of years, that is going to have to be phased out. Right. They will eventually become illegal because these are quite carcinogenic and they're quite harmful to health. So we have to have other methods. Now, my alma mater is Dundee University in Scotland, and in Dundee University, we use a particular soft fix technique called Thiel soft fix. And this basically keeps the colours of the tissues very true to life. And in fact, we can even keep fluids moving through the arterial and venal system, and we can keep the lungs inflating and deflating. Pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing. And for surgeons or for different therapists coming in, it's as close to the real life. Now, I also specialize in fresh frozen cadaveric dissection. However, as soon as you make an incision to the skin and atmospheric air touches the tissues change instantly. And this is a really difficult point to get across to people, to realize that when you see a photograph or an image of muscle and fascia, it is so completely different to the image that Dr. Jean-Claude Guimberteau captured using his endoscope and going under the skin in real time. His patients sign a form giving him permission to do this technique. And boy, has that changed everything for us.
Yes, it gives you a completely different view in going forward. And again, all of that, it's again more accurate to the hands-on of what therapists are doing as well. The message all around is much clearer when you're working that way.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give you a little example as a teaser for people listening. I mean, people vocabulary, we mentioned vocabulary and language, and as I said, vocabulary and language are really key for me. They are so important. I do my very best to choose my words carefully. So would you believe, for instance, that in terms of living tissue, connective tissue, whether it's fascia or other connective tissues, in terms of human, let's say living tissue does not stretch. Yet the word stretching is used on a regular basis. But I think a lot of people don't realize that living tissue does not stretch. And in fact, it's not that it can't stretch, but if you stretch it, you're damaging it. You are causing, structural changes that are going to really have a negative effect on the integrity of the tissue. So I think a new explanation is required, and I think people will appreciate that. It may not necessarily be that they will change everything that they're doing, although I think I would like them to also change a lot of what they're doing, but they will have a different perspective and a different image in their mind as to what's actually happening to the skin and deep to the skin. There's another good one, by the way. There are no layers in the human body. There is only depth. So we have depth from the skin to which, could be the sandy, shallow area, to the bone, which is the other sandy banks of this amazing ocean of connective tissue that we call the human body. So I do not talk in terms of layers.
That is, I think, a fantastic sneak peek to let people know what they will be in for with the pre-conference day. I mean, again, that's the stuff that is so useful for therapists. All of this, all around, especially these misused terms, like you say, with stretching. I think we are definitely on a new wave where people are really not just accepting the traditional knowledge that they were given and, well, what does this mean? What does it mean to stretch? What is, so that I know is going to be exciting. So I hope that, it sounds very exciting to me as a therapist, that's for sure.
I'll provide some, examples to be able to demonstrate just exactly what that means. And when we think about it, by the way, what better way to understand the human body than through the study of anatomy. However, isn't it also amazing that in 2016 that we can say that we have a new perspective, a new vision on how we approach the human body? That unfortunately, much as I love history, we are very much dictated by 13th century anatomy. And we really do need to have some new explanations. And so I believe if people will, allow us to have their company this June, I think that it really will pay dividends for them. And I really firmly believe that it's a game changer.
Yes.
To come along to the Bio-10 Integrity Day and get into good, hearty discussion